All right, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. I am Whitney Doyle. I'm the Director of Government Relations with the Amputee Coalition. Today, I have short, medium length brown hair. My background behind me is a tan wall, and I'm wearing a light tan sweater. And we are kicking off today's webinar, Power of Personal Narrative, connecting your personal story to your advocacy work. Let me start by saying how excited I am that you all could join us today to learn more about how you can be a part of the movement to change minds and hearts to support the limb loss and limb difference community. I want to mention a few housekeeping rules before we get started today. First, when you scroll over your screen, there's going to be a menu bar that pops up. Depending on what device you're on, you can find that menu bar at the top or the bottom of the screen. In that menu bar is where you're going to find the closed captions. It's going to be in the three dots down on the menu bar. You can view the captions by selecting that closed captions within that three-dot section. If the screen is being shared and you'd like to change the size of the screen or the size of the presenter shared videos, you can do so by selecting the line in the middle of the screen that separates the presentation from the presenter. This line will move left or right and allow the video and the shared screen to get larger or smaller. If you have any technical issues, please use the chat feature. You can find the word bubble on the same menu bar that says chat. If you'd like to turn the chat feature off, you can do that by pressing Alt-H. For questions to our presenter, please note that the Q&A box is on the menu bar as well. Please only submit questions there, as they may get lost in the chat. And as John goes through his presentation, he's going to go through questions in the Q&A. So if you want to ask anything or make a verbal comment, you can select the raise your hand option by selecting that in the reactions tab on the menu bar. You can also raise your hand by pressing Alt-Y or *9 if you're joining us by phone. When we do call your name, that's when we want you to unmute and share your comment. Remember that anytime you speak, please say your name before speaking. And to minimize distractions, if you're not speaking, we ask that you stay mute. If you need to mute or unmute your microphone, you can do that on the menu bar or by pressing Alt-A. Remember, if you join the conversation, try to keep background noise down to a minimum. So today's webinar is the second of 4 advocacy trainings that we're hosting during the month of April, which you all know is Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month. Our upcoming webinars for next week and the week after are Breaking into Workforce Development, which is on April 19th at 4 p.m. Eastern, and Finding Your Voice Career Pathways Workshop on April 26th at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can view the recording for last week's training, Advocacy 101, on the Amputee Coalition's YouTube channel. And now, without further ado, I am thrilled to have the pleasure of introducing our presenter today, John Register. John Register is a silver medalist, 2-time two-sport Paralympic athlete, 2-time Olympic trials qualifier, combat Army veteran, amputee, and founder of the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee's now defunct Paralympic Military Sport Program. Register uses his life experience as an inspirational speaker to inspire people to hurdle adversity, amputate fear, and embrace a new normal mindset to win life's medals. So with that, John, the floor is yours.
Hey, Whitney, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. The first thing is, can everyone hear me? That is the most important question. So I appreciate you just kind of putting in the chat. I see Whitney's there. Elena's on. Hey, Elena, talked to you a few days ago. Thomas is on. Daniel is on. Anybody else? Lisa's there. Yes, I got yeses to that. So thanks for that. We're not going to be on, hopefully not too much. Thank you so much. Rebecca, I see you. Vala's on there. Lisa. Awesome. So thanks for everybody for just letting me know that you can hear me. Happy Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month. Thank you so much for the support you're doing out there. I've been looking and watching all of the great comments that you're doing and the postings out there, especially on Instagram. It's my jam. So was right, says Lisa. All clearly, says Joseph. Thank you loud and clear, Wendy. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to jump into this, but before I do, I want to just kind of make some shout outs, to Whitney, the team there at Amputee Coalition that are really, pushing forward. And as we're moving into Advocacy Month, these are really powerful to get our stories out there. And sometimes we don't know kind of what story we want to tell, or how to tell it. And so I have done a couple of sessions like this before just to help us understand why our stories are valuable and why they make a difference in this advocacy work. So stories, our stories matter, and the stories are matter because of what we have been through, right? So I'll go back and kind of do a little personal story of how I got into kind of some advocacy work when I was building out the Paralympic military sport program. Now, if you go back all the way to 2004, 2005, when the United States was going into the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, it wasn't the most popular thing in the world. And when the first casualties started coming back from theater that were limb loss, in particular, single leg amputees, single arm amputees, then doubles and triples, and eventually quad amputees. That wasn't a narrative that the military wanted to get out. And I was building this Paralympic military sport program, and I got called to come to Capitol Hill to advocate. And it was like one of my first times going to Capitol Hill to share with them this program. Now, you can imagine, testifying before Congress, I was working for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. I was trying to get money for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee's Paralympic military sport program. The challenge was that Congress really didn't necessarily want this negative perception of people with limb loss coming out of the Afghan-Iraq war. So my role was to kind of shift that attitude, right? And I began with, because my role with the Gulf War story of, being a Gulf War veteran, how I became an amputee, stepping a hurdle, and kind of sharing that aspect of my life, and then showcasing the benefits of sport as a tool in the rehabilitation process. That was a part of my own story journey when I was at the Brooklyn Medical Center. And then I was going to try to garner some support. So before the House Armed Forces Subcommittee, I'm sitting there, I got my laptop out, turned it up, and my name's called. Mr. Register, would you please begin remarks? I open my laptop up, and the whole screen goes blank. So there I am. Oh, dang. Oh, what's going to happen now? So I've been studied, I'm nervous already. It's my first time testifying. I open my laptop up. It's a whole full-on crash. So the House chair, recognizing what's going on, says to me, sometimes it's just better to speak from your heart. And that kind of calmed all my nervous energy. It really made a situation where I was thinking, let me just kind of do that. Because I had already rehearsed some of those things and points that I wanted to. So let me just kind of speak from it. Knowing they already had my briefing packet before them, and they've already probably read through it, or they should have read through it already. So I could just kind of share my own personal experiences. And I think that's really it, right? Later, the outcome of that was I would later get in 2007, $5 million from the DoD to start the Paralympic military sport program for active duty services. And now that's turned into Warrior Games. That's what the budget is from there. And then $10 million for the VA. So the VA has kind of some regional programs out now because of that ability to share a story, to connect with the community, and then make that community really understand who you are and the value that you're representing, despite all the people that were the naysayers out there that weren't agreeing with the Iraq or Afghan war. It was about the service member and really elevating them during that time. So when you think about this presentation today, think about what your story is as we're going through. Write it down. What are some nuggets that can come up for you that you can share, that you want to make sure other people know about your situation? Because this is the time to advocate. If you ever watched the Sunday morning cartoons a little while ago where it was, I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, this is how the sausage gets made. You are part of that sausage making. You are the ones that are in the room, and your story matters. It matters. Telling with conviction matters. It matters making changes because it's going to help people move past what might be in their lives to what we can expect in their lives. So we're going to outline the session today. We're going to talk about four major themes. Why our story matters is one. We already started talking that. Finding your story. Then how to bring your story to life, and then how to connect your story to advocacy work. That'll be the last phase. So 1, why story matters. 2, finding your story. 3, bringing your story to life, and then connecting your story to the advocacy work that you are already doing out there. So again, I want to just thank the staff for putting this together, Whitney and all the folks that are out there. And of course, you know, it's Limb Loss, Limb Difference Awareness Month. Did you buy your T-shirt? Did you get your shirt? I got my shirt. Did y'all get your shirt? So I just want to make sure you got your shirts. Mine just came in the mail, and I got one for my wife too. So because you know, we have our spouses matter as well. They help tell the story also. All right. So why your story matters. So I was also yours is on the way. All right, Rebecca's got it. Awesome. Absolutely. Thank you, Beth. Okay, all right. We got the shirts coming. I want to see them all. You're going to wear these all during this month, but also bring them to the to the conference. So when you get to the conference, we want to show wear our shirt day. All right. So make sure you got your shirts. I've been volunteering now with the Amputee Coalition in various variety of capacities for, I think, since 1970, not 1970, I wasn't even amputee then, 1996, maybe 96, 95 or 96. Give wings to dreams and those type of things. You know, I was working for the Community and Family Supports in the United States Army at that time after my amputation. You got one for your, okay, Lisa's got one for a shirt coming for her husband and herself. Awesome, love it. So families matter, man, I'm telling you. So, and I've been in a lot of different capacities. The one that really helped me understand what some of the fights were was when I was on NAOPS committee, you know, that committee for orthodontics and prosthetics that really does the Capitol Hill work. A lot of those legislative things, Peter Thomas's work, you all probably know Peter Thomas. And the reason why these things work is because, and we want a person up from the community going into these meetings, is because of several reasons. One, it creates an emotional connection. We create that emotional connection, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We cannot deny that seeing a person living with a limb loss or limb difference causes people to take a second look. How many people in the grocery store, in an airport, walking down the aisle, any place you've been, have taken a second look at you? It takes a second look. Even though limb loss is becoming more normalized now, lots of commercials out there on it, there is still quite a long way to go because people are still taking that second glance. I'm in an airport, somebody says, hey, mom and dad, there's Robot Man, right? For sure. Yep, all the time, right? I see it. At least a second look, says Lisa. Right. So that's what we see. So we can take advantage of that. That's part of the story. So we don't have to negate it or push it away. We can actually embrace it and make it a part of a common experience that we all have. And, you know, my wife kind of gets a little froggy when people are looking a little bit too long. Right, Lisa? So she'll get a little froggy on that, right? So why are you looking at him so much? And she start moving her head. So this is important to recognize because those in Congress do not experience this firsthand or often experience it through your experience, through your testimony, right? And for those that are hand above the wrist, sorry for that, first hand, you know, got a first hand and second hand. So they look at it from your experience, is what I'm trying to say. Third, it makes issues relatable, right? There's now a face to the issue. There's a face to the issue. And when there's a face to the issue, we begin to lean in more because we know that is a personal experience and not just some rhetoric that's out there. A lot of people right now, if you're looking on social media, a lot of rhetoric being spoken, not a lot of people going deep and dives into their own personal narratives. People just chime in and jump in on anybody else's content without having any, you know, they just want to be heard. They just want a blowhorn, right? And so we want to make sure our voices are directed at the thing that we want it directed to. So it makes this relatable. It inspires action. That's number D or the letter D. Inspires action. So if we have Amy Purdy's going to be coming to our event. Mike Schultz going to be coming to our event. Amy Purdy, you know, Paralympian, starts the whole snowboard, gets it into the Paralympic Games, but also comes out of that with Dancing with the Stars, wins, you know, gets second place on Dance with the Stars. Mike Schultz builds a moto knee for helping his competitors actually beat him in competition, which I thought is actually fascinating. But those two individuals, when you look at it, they're inspiring action. They're inspiring actions for others. People out there, just in GP like myself, general population, you know, when I'm walking around town with my family, it's inspiring action. When I'm climbing up the incline or something, it's inspiring action. When you're out there as well, it's inspiring somebody's action. Now, a lot of folks kind of are get a little bit off twisted or get a little twisted with the word inspiration. those that are inspiring those who are temporarily able-bodied to question what is going on in their life. And this can get into this kind of thing that we usually call like inspirational porn. But I'm not speaking or referring to that, using somebody's disability to elevate ourselves off of. What I'm looking at is the pure form of this and how we can actually relate that and use that to tell our story. It's not about the exploitation. I'm talking about the true meaning of the word inspiration. Now, if you know Latin, the word inspiration comes from the word inspiro, which means to breathe oxygen into. It's to breathe into somebody, breathe life into someone. And so how many of us have seen so many people, some from our own community, who are sucking the oxygen out of the room? Always negative, have no purpose but to complain. Solution. What's the solution? We can choose to be inspirations to negate the negative naysayers. Right, Joseph? Right, absolutely. There's always someone that's going to be negative out there. So we can take that energy and spin it the other way. What I like to do is write about airplanes landing, about boats docking. And so that takes a positive spin. So there's not this perception of a negative person coming in, going to Congress or going to your leadership that might be in their mindset. We always take that positive spin. I don't have time for folks that are in the negative space because we got way too much work to do. So that's the space of how we can take that and shift the conversation and put the oxygen into the environment. And finally, it builds trust. No one can refute your testimony. You own it. I own my story. You own your story. I was afraid to share my story because it was too much about me. And once somebody released me to that, to say, if you don't share your story, you're not going to release somebody else that needs to hear it. And I offer the same advice that I was given to you. You share your story in such a compelling way that makes it about the other individual. You can release people and really help them grow and get them past. We become more empathetic to a person rather than sympathetic to a person. Do it my way is sympathy. I understand where you are is empathy. Okay. So that's what we want to do when we're beginning to tell these stories. When I released that fear, my story was helping other people to unlock theirs, and yours can do this. Yours does the same thing. But there's an interesting note that I wrote down in my notes. I was sharing a story at Panorama School. It's a middle school here in Colorado Springs where I live, and I asked the teachers afterwards, about a half a week afterwards, I said, "Hey, how the students respond in the classes? What was the afterthought?" And I'm going to pause right there. Vaughn says, as a bilateral above knee amputee, let me see here. I truly believe we are best examples and inspires by letting them see without worrying. Yes, absolutely. Without being offended. Right. Absolutely. So we get a chance to share that. Thanks for sharing that, Vaughn. Brenda, exactly. By sharing our story, you are sharing your vulnerability and opening this space up for others to tell their story. And especially during advocacy, right, Brenda? So that's what we're talking about. So thank you for writing those in the comment section. I'm just trying to make sure I'm honoring you in the comments as well. So in this middle school, asked the teachers about 3-4 days afterwards, what's the talk of the town, because they talk. And I was flabbergasted that some of the kids, after I showed my leg, kind of let them poke at it, and I took my socket off a little bit, showed them another leg, showed them the long jump. They didn't believe that I was actually an amputee. We have gone so far deep in society of letting folks just get away with anything they want to, that people question a person that's right in front of them, that takes their leg off in front of them, whether they're an amputee or not. They don't even believe the truth that's right before them. And I think that's a dangerous spot. So we have to begin to respect, or at least be aware that that is going on as we're beginning to advocate for our positions. Because even though we say that our position is valuable, somebody else might not believe that from their own, what they call their own truth. But there's only one truth. So that's what I want to just kind of get out there. I found that very interesting that some of those kids were still questioning whether or not I was an amputee after watching me take my leg off, thinking it was a party trick. That's fascinating. So the crazy, right? And sad. Yes, Lisa. And that's the second part of that, and sad. So the case study. right? We're looking at how many of you know out there, just put in the chat, the So Kids Can Move campaign, right? That's being done by AOPA. We have the National Association for the Advancement of Orthotics and Prosthetics. That's another group that's on with that. Ourselves, the Amputee Coalition, the American Academy of Orthotists and Prosthetists, that's on as well. All that. So yeah, Brenda working on So Kids Can Move in Connecticut. Thank you very much for that. So one of the things, this new policy initiative to expand access to prosthesis and orthosis, utilized for physical activity and medical necessary health care for children on a state-by-state basis, it helped me understand and helped me realize that had I been an amputee when I was a kid, I might not be in front of this position today with you all, because I would have grown up very differently in that. And so we want to make sure these kids can move, right? So all these things that we're talking about above, being able to build trust and question and to get into the weeds on this, to inspire trust and build trust and make things relatable and inspire action to our state leadership is all relevant by the how many things we're now passing. So Brenda, you're doing So Kids Can Move in Connecticut. How many states do we have now that have signed on board? I think Colorado's one. We just went down to Mexico. There's some. I think we got like 7 or 8 now. I can't remember off the top of my head. But we're moving, and we're moving because of our stories and the personal stories that are being in front of individuals, teaching them how to speak just a little bit, and then letting their stories run, because no one can refute that own personal brand, your own personal testimony. So absolutely. All right, Joseph, you're new, but interested in being educated. Awesome. We're going to get into some of this as well. So now we're going to get into, I'm going to pause there. Any questions on that section? I'm going to move to another section called Finding Your Story. This is that's the second section. So Finding Your Story. And I'm going to look from the chat just for a couple seconds here. And I don't see anything right now, so I'm going to keep on moving. All right. So understanding, I think the first thing is understanding your story archetype. This is in finding your story, how to find your story. Now, what's an archetype? An archetype is a behavior, it's a symbolism, it's that are deeply embedded in your psyche and reflect the fundamental human experiences and emotions. And so by choosing your archetype, you're tapped into a shared cultural and emotional reservoir that resonates with your audience and helps them relate to your story. So that's an archetype that we're really talking about. So they're kind of going to jump through these. I'm going to jump through 14, but they're going to put them in 2 different buckets. One are 7 archetypes of story. There are a lot more than this, but I'm going to focus on these 7 because we generally fit into these first 7. The first is overcoming the monster. Overcoming the monster. When we think about overcoming the monster, there's some big thing that's in our life that we have overcome. My story actually fits into overcoming the monster. If I were to ask you and to put in a chat, what's a movie that you have seen that would be an archetype of overcoming the monster? What might be a movie that you have seen that is an archetype of overcoming the monster? Just put in the chat box right there. Passed in, okay, great. While you're doing that, I'm going to read these off. Passed in Maine, New Mexico, efforts underway in Colorado, Illinois, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Oregon, Tennessee, Utah, and Washington. Fantastic. Thank you for the So Kids Can Move. Putting that in the Brenda. So what's an archetype of overcoming the monster? What kind of movie would you say? What's the movie that you have seen that would be overcoming the monster? Forrest Gump. Yeah. So you're right. So Forrest Gump could be like overcoming the monster, or maybe a disability or something like that, right? So that could be it. Alien, right? Overcoming the monster. Terry Fisher story. Love that one as well. The second one is the quest. The quest. So the hero is on a quest to find something. I got to make a new discovery. So the quest. What might be Quest? A movie that would be the quest, going after something. Overcoming the Monster, Shawshank Redemption, absolutely another great movie, fantastic. I always watch it when it comes on too. You gotta get busy living or get busy dying. Lord of the Rings, yes, Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings could be in the next one too, of the Voyage and Return. So so the quest going out, Frodo Baggins trying to drop the ring into the fire, but also he comes back to Shire and he tells his experience about it, right? So that's the third one, Voyage and Return. What's one that might be Riches, Rags to Riches? Camelot, Finding Nemo, I love those. Riches, Rags to Riches. So you had a lot, you lost it all, you got it all back. What's the story that has that kind of archetype to it? What might be that? An archetype of riches, rags to riches. Job, yes, absolutely. Trading places, yes, absolutely. The Creek, I'm not sure what that one is. I haven't seen that one. And then happiness, pursuit of happiness. I think that was right. That might be rags to riches. But yeah, so you get the gist of it, right? And then there's comedy. So comedy is what we call pain plus time. And so it becomes like a humorous thing. You can put in the comedy chat. Tragedy, usually in tragedy in movies, is something that's happened now, Romeo and Juliet or something like that, where there is no resolve to it, or there is a like, I want this thing to resolve, but the chord will not resolve. It just sits there. Pursuit of Happiness was the name of the absolutely Bond. Yes, thank you for that. And then finally, rebirth. Finally, rebirth. Okay, so we were reborn, we rediscovered, we're reborn. Now there are 7 archetypes and characters in story as well. So there's the hero, who's the protagonist, who embarks on a journey or a quest, overcomes challenges, and achieves a goal. There's the mentor, who is a wise person and experienced guide, helps the hero on their journey, gives advice. The threshold guardian, that's a character who blocks the hero's progress and tests the resolve and forces them to prove their worth. The shadow is the antagonist or the villain who opposes the hero and represents the darkest fears and flaws. The shape shifter, a character who changes their appearance or behavior or an attitude, creating certainty and big ambiguity about their true motives and intention. The trickster, a character who uses humor, wit, or cunning to subvert authority, challenge the status quo, and disrupt and expect the expected order of things. And the herald, a character who event that sets the hero on their journey, announces their call to action, or heralds a major change or transformation. So right now, I'm gonna go to we're gonna go out to Mentimeter. I want to share my screen, see if I can get this done. See if I can do it right this time. Yeah, Josephine, I'll give you some handouts for this. It's in the notes. I put this together pretty quick, so I don't have like a handout per se for this. I'll make one up and I'll give it to Whitney, and I'll have it today, and you can get that back for your reference with this information. So let's go out here to Menti, and we're going to do an exercise real quick. And so you should see on this. Let me stop the share real quick. I got to get you the Whitney. If you can put, did that work in the chat? Yeah, there we go. So if you go to click on that link right there, it should take you out there. I'm going to share screen to go to a place where you should be able to get this. Let me see if I can do that right now. I'm going to share that. Let me see that. Okay. And oops. Okay. Let me see. I'm going to see if I can go here on Menti. If you can see that that QR code right there, you should be able to just do it there. So okay, we got a person coming in already on it. Okay, I think you guys are getting it. So on that, so that's coming in. So I'm going to change the share over to the screen 2, and let's go this way. So now you should be seeing some of the stuff that's coming up. Tasmanian Devil, Fred Flintstone, Road Runner. We got the Road Runner again. Never watch cartoons. What? Never watch cartoons? You got to go back. You got to get the Cartoon Network and go back and watch some of these amazing cartoons. So that's Popeye, yes, Olive Oyl and Popeye, Mickey Mouse. Great. Okay, I just want to make sure it was working before we went on to the next deal. Strawberry shortcake. All right. So I'm going to push us to the next deal here. Let me move this over just a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. So here's the question. What is your story archetype? What's your story archetype? Is it overcome the monster? Is it rags to riches? The quest? And notice you usually have one archetype, primary archetype. You might have some sub-archetypes, like I have underneath my archetype, overcoming the monster. I have the rebirth as a part of my archetype, but that's a sub-archetype. I have riches, rags, and riches, but that's another sub-archetype. I have voids and return also. Again, it's a sub-archetype of my main archetype, overcoming the monster. So we got one for overcoming the monster, we got one for the quest, we have a tragedy, we have 3 for rebirth. Love that. Okay. And 1 for comedy, voids and return. We're getting a good spread across the board on all these. So thank you for putting those in there. See, we have 47 people on though. And by my math, we've only got 9 people that have answered this survey. So, but we're not going to stay here too long. I just want to see where people were on the rebirth. And the rebirth is, I have had something happen to me, and now I am thinking in a totally different way. right? Rebirth in my contextual model that I do as a professional speaker is really challenging because it's extremely hard because in the rebirth, everything is brand new. New means no prior point of reference. And when something is brand new, we sometimes want to go back to the way it used to be, but we cannot because we've already made a commitment to that new thing. Quest, I love that, Denise. So that's always difficult. It's like we have phantom pains to the way things used to be, but it's no longer there. It's no longer accessible to us. So the rebirth is that measure. Allison, that's totally fine. No problem. It's okay. So I just wanted to kind of just share with you, kind of help you, and just think about it. When you're studying this a little bit, and we'll get we're going to hand out to you on it. Just think about where you might be in your journey. What this will do, it will help you identify the story, because probably when people were out there saying this, it probably created a story in their mind of why they chose that archetype. And that's where we want to begin with. That's the kind of fun. So Lisa says, mine is pretty new, so I'm choosing to see it as a dark comedy. Okay, all right, good. All right, very good. I love it. So to continue that, we all need the humor, right? So that's fantastic. It doesn't really matter. It's not a yes or no. It's not a pass or fail type question. It's kind of where you see yourself, because we're all different and we all need to be different to do this work. And so how to bring your story to life. That's number four. How to bring the story to life. The first thing is, I think we have to use really vivid details and sensory language. There's an impact and effect, maybe cause and effect inside of giving a presentation. Now I'm putting on my speaker hat now. When I do a presentation before an audience, I am trying to go so deep in my story, and you don't have to necessarily do what I do, but I try to go so deep in my story to release the audience who want to reciprocate as the depth that I've gone. And so what I mean by that is I go into the granular of what the day was like and what the wind was like and marking the experience of me running around the track over those hurdles. And then when I come to the point of injury and I go across the hurdle and I land wrong and I hyperextend my knee, then they're in it. They're locked in. No one's going anywhere. It's like they're watching a movie, and the movie's in their own mind. They're playing it in their own mind. So we begin to look at how we can use our own stories in such a way to use the vivid details of our story life. And it doesn't have to necessarily be around the amputation or limb loss, limb difference. It can be something totally different. But it's got to be something where we got all the senses moving to help us and help our audience understand and put them in the scenario where we are as well. The second thing is we should be focused on the positive. We need to focus on some negative too, but I'm going to share that a little bit later. But focus on the positive. While it's important to be honest and authentic when sharing your amputee story, try to focus on the positive aspects of the journey, such as the lessons that you learn. Whatever lesson you learn, write those lessons down, because those are golden when you're talking to a person that's in front of you that might not get it. Because you can say it's like this, and then you can insert what's the lesson you learned, because they may have another similar lesson that they learned as well in another total area of their life. And now we share a common experience. We're always trying to get a common experience shared. By emphasizing the strengths and resilience, you can help them and resilience that you have helped you overcome adversity. You can inspire others to face their own challenges with courage and determination. And it doesn't take too much to do that. It's just by saying, well, how about you? What would you do if you were in my situation and you didn't have access to insurance? How would you do it? I mean, you can go out right now and go through a surgery that might be coming up that might be easy, and all of a sudden you're a double leg amputee because of an infection. So all these things we can begin to say and put them in the context, not to scare people, but to really get them to see our viewpoint and from their vernacular. I think the other thing is we can use visuals. Consider incorporating photos and videos into your storytelling. So you can bring some of those things with you to share. This is what I went through. This is what it looked like, right? I'm gonna and so what I do in kind of my storytelling, of that, is I also will try to do some sharing as well. So here's my injury slide. you look at that, I should have probably prefaced that before you put it up there in case you're freaking out. That's my foot. This is my actual day of my injury, where when I misstepped the hurdle, dislocated my left knee. And you'll see that the knee is protruding out. So I use a picture to say, this is what happened. So pictures worth, they say, is 1,000 words. But how I use this now is I can say, so that was then, but this is now. And I go to the other one and I say championship, right? So I won a Paralympic silver medal in the long jump. So now I got an artificial leg. We see the champions pose. And then I can go back to when I was at my lowest point and say this. I no longer see the injury. What I now see is the support system that's around me. Even the person that took the picture, when I couldn't support myself, all of these individuals supported me. Just like you, sir, ma'am, inside this advocacy forum and advocacy day, how you're supporting us in the work that the Amputee Coalition is doing. Your work is like when I was on the ground, I can't do this for myself. You are the representative that we have in office to get these things done. And so that begins to help us articulate the story that we need to have to move forward in that capacity of what we want to do for advocacy work. So that's kind of how we begin to do that. So we can use visual aids for that. That's my point. Then we can share our unique perspective. As an amputee, you have a unique perspective on life and the world around you. Use your storytelling to share that perspective, your insights, your observations, your wisdom, and with the audience to help them see your world differently. And then you focus, like we said, focus on your triumphs, but also I want to say, focus on some of the negative as well, because there's so many people are negative anyway, that if we just kind of call that out, it makes our positive so much greater. By highlighting some of the goals that we've achieved and the obstacles you overcome, you can inspire others to pursue their dreams and goals. So highlight the obstacles, take them deep, and then bounce them back to the dreams and goals that you have. How did you overcome those obstacles? When I say to my story is, I didn't overcome the amputation of my left leg, because had I overcome the amputation of my left leg, I'd have my leg back. But what did I overcome? I overcame my mindset around my amputation. So I'm not going to get into that, but that's kind of how I share the narrative. And then I can take, what did you overcome in life? It was like an amputation. A lot of us went through COVID. We all have a cerebral amputation. We desire to have some things back that were no longer accessible to us. And the people that had disabilities received the worst end of the healthcare inside of that. Mine's absolutely rich. We see the worst end of that healthcare during the pandemic. So this is why we're here to support this bill or this whatever through advocacy. So we're always linking it and tying it right back to the advocacy piece, right? So that's how we do that. And then we highlight the support of others, because nobody does this alone. We also said, remember when we first started this presentation, how we have family members that are walking along beside us. We have advocacy folks that are walking beside us as well. So thanks, Lisa, on the great analogy. Yes, mindset's important, says Rich, and great analogy. Yes. So that's how we begin to incorporate everything we have in our life to begin to advocate for ourselves, and not just for ourselves, but for others as well. So the next thing is organization. Organization of your thoughts to begin to tell your story is to, once you kind of understand that the narrative of the archetype, and you got all these things in your head, I kind of mind map myself. I put stuff all over the board and I start circling things that might connect with the issue that might be in front of me. And then I begin to put the story, what narrative would be good to tell for this group of people, or this congressperson, or this senator, whoever it might be. I begin to kind of craft that narrative for each one of those, so I can articulate that with the story once I get inside of the room. So I write down the idea. So write down your ideas, right? Then write out a narrative, a sequence on the idea that you just wrote down. What happened first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and just write the narrative sequence down. And then begin to add the archetype on top, or any other character archetypes around it, so that you can begin to put meat on the bones, so to speak. And then finally, what we want to do is connect your story to the advocacy work. So we can do that from, hey, Luis, how you doing? My boy from Luis, we were out there in California together. We had a great time. Connect your story with advocacy work. Insert your advocacy piece and make any connections to it that you think are relevant. And then there's 3 things you got to do all the time, over and over again, and repeat these 3 things at least 3 times over. And that is rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. Remember when I said my laptop went totally white? The reason I could actually articulate what was in my heart was because I had rehearsed it over and over again. That's why it comes out. It comes out naturally when you rehearse what's going on inside of you. So Thomas, thanks. This is excellent. I look forward to the handouts. Absolutely. So, so how to rehearse? Rehearse with another partner. You can rehearse with somebody that might be on this call with you. Find a partner. Get yourself to a rehearsal on what it is. Challenge each other. Push each other. I didn't quite understand that point. Make this a little bit more clear. That will help you when you actually get inside of the program. I was getting out of the military. I went through a TAPS program, Total Army Involvement, Transition Assistance Program. Transition Assistance Program. So at the Transition Assistance Program, our instructors told us to rehearse going through an interview and get some interviews you didn't want, right? So one interview that I didn't really want to practice on was McDonald's and Burger King and a bus, driving the bus and city bus in San Antonio. A one-legged bus driver in San Antonio. Got a call back on a job I didn't want. So it was funny to me, right? It was the amazing piece of just practicing enough times and rehearsing it so that when the real job opportunity comes, you're able to articulate in the moment. So rehearse with each other every time you meet, rehearse. And get your points out every time maybe you stop at a stoplight. Sometimes I do that if I'm working on something. Stop at a stoplight, rehearse, what are your 3 points? Get your points out every time a commercial comes on. Commercial comes on, say your 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, whatever the point is, right? And then one of my points is I realized I would not be here. Remember I said earlier, the amputation would have happened when I was at a younger age. I probably wouldn't be here because I came through the VA system. It's the greatest system I think ever created, right? We'll say a lot of negative things about the VA, but that is pretty powerful. That most of my prosthetics are covered by the Department of the Veterans Affairs. And that's one of my sticking points for talking to congressional leadership, saying everybody should have open access to this. It should not be just because I served in the military that I have access to some of the better equipment. We all need to have access to this because it decreases secondary sedentary rates. We need to have access to this. Same thing like so kids can move. Yes, that's not this great system. So that is how we begin to share that narrative and push our agendas forward as a collective voice. And that's the final thing I was kind of share on this is all of our stories collectively come together. If you have looked at the rollout of the vision, the mission, and the values of the Amputee Coalition, which we put in place when I was the acting CEO, which was critical for us having a foundation to move forward, to move, elevate, and to grow upon, you will see that one of those values is our stories matter. Our stories matter. That is these values are non-negotiables. We will be telling stories. And we want to make sure that you have the best way to tell your story because your story does matter. It changes the way people think about things. All right. So that's kind of what we've talked about today, why storytelling is important and how it's compelling. We did some exercises around that. Now I will yield it over to Whitney to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. I haven't seen any questions come in through the Q&A. So if anybody has any additional questions they want to drop in there. If not, it looks like you've been touching on everybody in the chat as we've gone along here. So I haven't seen any questions come through, but we'll give everybody a moment just in case they want to type something out here before we wrap up.
I think Whitney, you do have the outline of this so that we can, I'll give you the other two and then we can put a little package it up real nice and send it out to all the folks.
Absolutely. That sounds great. It looks like Elena may have a question. How can we create spaces for us to actually work together on our stories and to connect with each other?
So a great source that we have right now at the Amputee Coalition is AC Connects. AC Connect, is it with an S or AC Connect? So get out there and you can create your own room with the people you want to do to create these to follow up with stories. So you got your own little network that you can create within AC Connect. Get up there, sign up for that for sure, because that's where a lot of business is going to be done. We're focusing everybody there. You saw the PSA campaign that came out. We're directing everybody to AC Connect so that we can kind of count the beans on who's in our community, and we want everybody talking right there, corralling everybody right there. Fantastic. Thanks for that question, Elena.
Okay, looks like we've got some questions in the Q&A, which I did send the link to AC Connect in the chat. But we have
Awesome.
one from Wed Hall said, how do elected officials respond when they find out the cost of prosthetics in your experience?
Sometimes they know what's the costs are. It's really different with every person that we speak with. And so I would give, as a generalization, I would say that once they understand and the personal story connects and they see it tangibly, they begin to act on those things because it just makes sense. And it doesn't really matter left side of the aisle, right side of the aisle. They kind of really both see it the same way because they all have people in their families that probably have experienced some type of disability. And they get it. They get it faster. And they know that healthcare is kind of train wreck in some areas and great in other areas, right? So it's all over the map. What we really want to be able to do is to ensure that they are aware of the issues and that we're making sure our issues are in the forefront. For example, if you notice the way that rehabilitation happens, those that have internal prosthetics, like a knee replacement or something, they get a whole plan to execute against. If you have an external prosthesis or orthosis, whole different plan. And so that's not inside, it's not as parallel. And so you don't get as much chargebacks on that. So we have to begin to articulate and help them understand that we have issues too. Just because it's external, exoskeleton, we have some of those issues as well. All right. Rebecca's in here. Thank you very much. I'm a fellow Colorado amputee, recent bilateral above elbow, and looking forward to creating my own story and getting involved in advocacy work. Awesome. Yes, Rebecca. And I'm in Colorado as well. Thank you very much. Woo-hoo. Colorado's rock. Look at that. Feel fast.
All right. So we got a comment in the Q&A from Brenda. She says, not a question, but a comment. Cynthia Watkins Hayes' book, How to Remake a Life, gives the framework that works well for me. She talks about moving from dying from to living with to thriving despite. Very powerful. That's from Brenda. And then Vaughn says, is there a program at AC that helps amputees go back to work? To clarify, transitioning from benefits to working full-time, healthcare is a big reason why some of us are not able to go back to work.
So the answer to that question is it's being built. So Trinaya is on our workforce development. First time we've ever had that. So that is going on right now as well. So you'll find out more information as we continue to grow that program. We're getting a lot of people, a lot of businesses that are coming on board because they want to be part of that workforce solution. So Trinaya is leading that charge on the AC team. So absolutely, we are getting into that space. But I will say it's in its infancy. So wait a little bit, let us grow up a little bit. But we're definitely playing that space right now.
Thanks, John. One more from Vala. How long should our stories be for the forum next week at DC?
So plan on forums, right? You kind of got to read the room. I would say get your story down to, you can say it in a minute to 90 seconds. So cut out the fat, but also have your 2-minute, 3-minute version ready to go as well, in case you're able to say it. And we will make sure that you play off of each other really well. So myself, Ryan, and Ashley, the last time we were in Washington, D.C., with our lobbyists, we did a really good job of, we each knew what everybody was going to say, and we stayed in our lanes, right? So just because I was wearing the executive hat, the CEO hat at the time, if Ashley had more information on that topic, I'm letting her speak. I'm not going to try to just usurp myself into there because I have more information or I just want to talk. Or if something's already been said, you don't need to repeat it. get to the next point to get that out. So those are tips and tactics on how to, strategize around advocacy forum. But I would say, to answer the question, I would say maybe a minute to 90 seconds to get it down as fast as you can. But then also have that longer version of about 3 minutes, 4 minutes to go as well. We just don't know how fast somebody might come in, and they might have a vote about to happen. They got to leave the room. So we want to make sure we get to the point. And I would say bottom line up front, right? Your message, the bottom line up front, and then you can kind of do the fluff later. And that's kind of a strategy around advocacy.
Okay, we have another one from Beth. She says in the chat that she lives remotely in North Dakota. Where do I start to assure/advocate that all people have access to home health care?
I would start with AC, because this is not my area of expertise. So I've sat with Whitney, that was number one, so she can help you with that. But also with your local government, right? Everything is local. So whatever the issue that you're looking for or looking to advocate for, find out where the local folks are. I know our mayor office here in Colorado Springs and the Denver office has a disability office. And I generally tend to start there if I have an issue to kind of vet and push out from the community. Hope that answered your question. I'm not sure it did.
Okay, John, I don't see any more questions coming in. Looks like we've got them all covered.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being on. Thanks for your support for the AC, and continue to make sure that you are engaged with us. Click on that link. That's where we're doing a lot of work right now for the AC Connect. So make sure that you're on there. Get your tribe together. If you're, above wrist, you're above, elbow, everybody can talk to each other. So make sure you're on there for that.
Thank you so much, John. That was a super informative conversation, and we'll definitely work together to get that handout put together and send out to everyone. If we don't get it to you today, expect it by the end of this week. Thank you all for joining us to learn more about advocacy. We hope to see you next week at our session, which is on Wednesday, April 19th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, which is Breaking into Workforce Development. So as I mentioned, there is going to be a recording of this video. It's going to be put on the Amputee Coalition's YouTube channel. So you can find the link to our YouTube either on the bottom left-hand side of the coalition's website, which is amputee-coalition.org, or by searching Amputee Coalition on YouTube. If you'd like to receive more information about the coalition services and upcoming events and webinars, you can sign up for our email list, which is on the Amputee Coalition's website. You can find that by completing the Join the Amputee Coalition form, which is under the Contact tab on the menu bar of the coalition's homepage. And if you, for any reason, want to contact us, you can do that by calling us at 1-888-267-5669 or emailing us at info@amputee-coalition.org. So thank you all again. Thank you, John. And we look forward to seeing you next week.